And good evening, one and all, and welcome to this edition of the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios not in Hamilton anymore. We are in Crystal Beach, Ontario, on the shores of Lake Erie. If you would like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, to find out about the programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Visit www.xzbn.net. And for the all the different shows we have available for you on the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV, visit simultv.com. The headline read as follows: Texas oil worker escapes abduction by UFO and has pictures to prove it. A Texas oil worker escaped the clutches of an alleged alien abduction and has pictures showing the extraterrestrial with an alarmingly large horn on its forehead, which may or may not double as an anal probe. Ronny Dawson, an oil worker driver, said, "The thing came right in front of me from outer space and flew right over me." He continues to say, "I was standing on top of these petrol tanks and taking photographs. I hid between the tanks because it scared the hell out of me." Sadly, as is so often in the case, Randy Dawson seemed only to have a really low-resolution flip phone camera with him, so the pictures are a little blurred. Joining me now to tell us more about this amazing story from Texas is Ronny Dawson. Ronny, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you, Rob.
Ronny, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, sir. I'm a Texas oil field worker. I live down here in North Central Texas. It's about 80 miles west of Fort Worth, right on the I-20. We're in the northern hill country here. And as an oil field worker, what I do is I drive a crude oil transport truck, about $250,000 worth of equipment in some of the most rural backcountry places you could ever imagine, and in the places you wouldn't want to take a Jeep sometimes. Really? Without tearing it up, and I transport these loads of crude oil from these oil leases to the pipeline facility where we put it in the pipeline, and it goes to the refineries and stuff for processing.
Now, have you always been a believer in UFOs, extraterrestrials, and visitation as well as alien abductions?
You know, quite honestly, I was kind of a skeptic, really, because I work out here in the middle of nowhere, Texas, at night, all night long, right. And for 25, 30 years, I haven't seen anything. I hadn't seen anything, I'd heard the stories. I wanted to believe it. I was interested in it, but I just never had seen anything. And we're the kind of guys that are out there that should be encountering this kind of stuff. So that added to my skepticism, actually.
Tell us about the night that you had your encounter, your first encounter.
Well, the first encounter was I was cruising south of Cisco, Texas out there, and we'd been seeing some weird lights over the trees that would come on and then go off without any explanation. They'd been puzzling us. I was just kind of curious as to what in the world that could be. But this night there was 6 lights came on, then there was 9 lights that stretched across the sky and the road in front of me. And I seen that, and it was large illuminating areas of light, not like intensely bright beams from a spotlight or anything like that, way up in the air. And I couldn't imagine what it was. And I was cruising down the highway, and I was just heading right at this thing in the middle of the night. And 3 of the lights broke off and traveled to a field about a quarter mile to my left. Out of my driver's side window, I was looking at all this. And finally, it's like I had went underneath the craft, and I couldn't see the lights anymore that were above me, but I could see the lights that had traveled away over the field. And I looked out of my driver's side window out there, and about maybe a quarter mile out in the field, there was a blue beam came down out of this craft and hit the ground. There was some kind of a bobblehead-looking thing out there with a fluorescent green light glowing around it. And all this happened very quickly. I mean, it moved from one area to another area within a minute. And there was a blue beam shot down to the ground, and I was taking all this in, trying to figure out whether I should stop or just keep going. And I was digging around looking for my accident camera I had in the truck to get some pictures, and taking all this in at the same time. And I looked in the blue beam, and I seen something about 30 feet off the ground, and it was something darker in the blue beam. And as I focused my eyes on it, all of a sudden I seen it was a cow, and it was whipping its head from side to side. And at that point, it just really hit me that, my God, this got to be a UFO, and this is a cow getting abducted, and I had no desire to stop at that point.
So your first encounter was witnessing a cattle mutilation. Am I correct?
Well, that was the most shocking thing I said. I don't know if they put the cow back, if they killed the cow and left the remains. I have no idea what happened to the cow. All I know is I seen it 30 feet up in the air being sucked up into this blue beam, and it was whipping its head from side to side, and it scared me, and it made me just really want to get the heck out of there. And I have no idea. I don't know if the cow died. And I looked. I never seen no buzzards or anything around there. And we went back, and the Japanese came down to do an episode on my sighting, and we stopped and we filmed around there and tried to talk to some people around there, and they'd seen some lights, but they didn't know anything about no cattle dying or anything like that.
Okay, let me quote something that you sent my producer. He witnessed a cattle abduction firsthand, and he became aware that the lights are from an alien origin. The lights seem to always show themselves, especially when he was in rural locations. He convinced a friend to help him record the craft and perform a laser experiment to test the craft's propulsion system in regards to its bending the fabric of space. In the test, Dawson fired a 250 milliwatt green laser around and onto the craft's surface. His friend, being awestruck at the sight of the UFO, failed to record the historic event. When was that done?
That was done in 2010, and we'd been seeing the lights, and I'd seen many of the craft, and I was trying to think outside the box on something I could prove to the skeptics and scholars that we're actually seeing something. And my thinking was that if this thing is bending in time and space, the laser beam would appear to bend, and if we could catch that on camera, we'd really have some solid evidence that these guys aren't from around here. And that was the whole idea behind this process.
Okay, but when you say that bend time and space, how did you come to that conclusion that this is what was happening and the propulsion and the appearance and disappearance of the craft had something to do with that?
Well, I'd been doing some reading and stuff like that on people theorizing how their propulsion system would work. How they would get achieve the speed of light and stuff like that, and listen to Bob Lazar talk about how the craft moved and stuff like that. So we were just trying to come up with something that would prove that if this craft is bending the space itself around the craft somehow, then a laser beam shot at the craft should appear to bend. That was our thinking. Now, I never saw this. I didn't, even if we would have had the camera to record it, I never saw that. I did shine the laser beam onto the craft itself to see if it would reflect the light, and it didn't. It just absorbed the beam.
Okay, now, what is a 250 milliwatt green laser, and where did you get it?
It's like a classroom laser, except it's more powerful than you'd want to use in a classroom.
It's just one of these handheld ones that have the different color lights on it. The red, you can change the beam from red to yellow, I believe.
Yeah, the green one, you can see the beam all the way. I mean, you can see the beam travel in a straight line for over a mile at that 250 milliwatt string. And anyway, the idea was we'd catch the beam bending and have it recorded, and we didn't get that pulled off. And I never did see the beam deviation, but what was really interesting was what happened the next night.
All right, apparently the next night the aliens paid you a visit.
Yeah, they got up close and personal with me at my house here in Ranger, Texas. And I guess I was really asking for it. I guess, you can't. But I noticed when they ransacked my house and kept me and froze me in my bed. And I mean, I had just laid down. It wasn't like I even had time to go to sleep.
Right.
And what happened was, as soon as I laid down, the stuff started breaking in the kitchen, and I thought my cat was the mischievous one, and I tried to get up to go see what he had gotten into, and I realized I was paralyzed and couldn't move.
How do you think the aliens knew where you lived?
I think they must have followed me home, and they had been watching me, and I know for a fact that they had been watching me, because later on we caught some video footage here at the house, and they kind of showed themselves. And in August 2017, they actually made contact with me here at my house. So I know that they're walking around my house, and where they're watching me from, you can't really detect them. They have a stealth that they could be right beside you. You wouldn't even be able to see them. All
right, Ronnie, we've got to take our first commercial break. But when we come back, let's talk about your first contact face-to-face with these ET visitors. Exonation, my guest is Ronny Dawson. You can find out more about Ronny by going to Facebook and Googling his name, or by putting his name in the search engine. Ronny Dawson Experiencer. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Crystal Beach, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and on the X Zone TV channel on SimulTV, simultv.com. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and if you'd like to find out more about my guest this hour, his name is Ronny Dawson, and you can go to facebook.com/Ronny-Dawson-Experience. And we're talking about Ronny's experience with UFOs and ETs. Ronny, once again, in the information you sent to my producer, the next night the aliens paid Ronny a visit in his home in Ranger, Texas. They held him hostage while they ransacked his home until they reached the point where the laser was stored. Dawson was fully conscious but unable to move as he was held in place by some invisible force. He watched helplessly as 3 ETs he described as insect-looking ran about the house for the laser. A year later to the day, Dawson was approached at work. This time he managed to catch photos and video of the craft. The craft appeared and approached within 50 feet of Dawson and sent him into hiding. Why do you think the ETs would follow you, visit you the next night, just to get a small handheld laser?
You know, I have no idea why they did.
Okay.
I think it maybe is. I thought it was maybe a retaliation for shining it on the craft, and when I shined that thing on the craft, I was really worried that they were going to fire theirs back, and we'd be turned to ash right there on the spot. It was scary doing it, and the next night I had no idea that they were going to come make appearance at my house, and these little things run about my house, and it scared me. And I had a cat in the house, and it scared him too, and he came and jumped on the bed with me.
Was there anyone else in the house besides you and your cat?
No, at that time I just lived here by myself, and I leave enough lights on in my house that I can kind of see to move around and get up and get a drink, go to the bathroom.
Now, was there damage done to your house?
Every drawer and cabinet in the whole house was open when the ordeal stopped.
Wow.
And I mean, everything was open, and some glasses had been knocked over. There was a lamp that had knocked over and broke. There was a few things broken, just minor stuff, but mainly they just opened every drawer in the whole house and went through it. But I didn't find anything missing, including the laser.
It sounds as if it was a home invasion, for goodness sake.
Yeah, they definitely invaded my house, and the gun cabinet where the laser was being kept was locked, and they had managed to unlock it. They unlocked both parts of the gun cabinet because I know it was locked, and I thought the laser would be gone. Sure enough, when I went in there and looked at it, and it was in there. It was still in there. So I don't know if they found it, looked at it, or observed it, or they never did find it and give up, or what. I don't know.
Did you call the police?
I wanted to call the police, but I'm a hazmat, crew transport driver, and I was sitting there asking myself, what are the police going to think I'm on drugs or some kind of stuff like that? And I finally just decided, well, I have no solid evidence that this actually happened, even though I really would have liked to call the police. And I think if I had it to do over again, it may cost me my job, but I probably would have done it.
But why would it cost you your job? If you had previous history with the police for drugs or alcohol, I can understand you being a little leery. But, why did you hesitate? That would have been an excellent way of getting it on paper that something had happened. Because now it's just your word that this happened. And if you had a police report, there would have been something to substantiate the claim that, something or someone had invaded your home.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have tried to get some physical
Hmm.
evidence of some of the places I'd seen them walking around and roaming around and stuff like that too. So I wish I would have.
Yeah.
I was afraid I'd lose my job because I don't know uh, we have to go through the same stuff that as airline pilots do. Psychological evaluations and stuff like that. And I was going, man, if the guys I work with,
Right.
hear about me seeing aliens in my house.
Uh-huh.
I drive a hazardous material crude oil transport truck.
Right.
That's not the guy you want working for you. The guy who chases aliens around his house.
I
Like,
guess that would be just like having a criminal record, right?
yeah, it would be like
Okay.
this guy's nuts or something, and we don't know if we want him in our truck
Hmm.
anymore. So, and that's kind of the way those guys are, really.
Okay, so what happened after that? Now, apparently, you were visited by work at your place of work. Who visited you? Who were they? Where did they come from? And what did they want?
It was actually 1 year to the day that they invaded my house.
Mhm.
And I hadn't seen anything for a year. And I kind of thought, man, they're just done with me.
Yeah.
As scary as it was, I'll never see anything like that again. And I was just at work doing my job at night. And it wasn't that late at night. It was about 10 o'clock at night. Or I think more closer to 9, I think. It wasn't that late in the night. And all of a sudden, I was driving up on this lease and I seen some lights over amongst behind the trees, something that was sitting on the ground, and the lights came on it, and it took off, and it went. It looked like it was going to pass right over my truck, and I was on the phone, and I told my friend, I said, I got a UFO here. I got to get a picture, and I was hanging out of the window up to my waist, and getting my camera ready to take a picture, and then the lights just blinked out, just like it always does. They just turn everything out or something, man. It just goes to dark, and you
Wow.
never hear anything, but they reappeared out over the field, and they reappeared out over the field. And I thought, yeah, I knew they didn't go away. They're still there. And for a solid hour, I was watching this thing move around, and at one point, it set on the ground. And I thought I got to get a video of it, see if I could catch that. I could see something moving around, looked like outside the craft, but it was in the distance. So I recorded it. I started recording this thing. It kind of leapfrogged like 100 yards and went down to the ground again. And then it shot up in the air, and it went about a mile in 2 seconds. And it was blinking yellow, red, and blue the whole time it did it. And then it just stopped a mile away in the air.
Hmm.
And I actually caught that on video. I still have that on video. You can see it on my YouTube, Ronny Dawson YouTube channel.
Did anyone else see these sightings? Was there any report that you were able to find in the newspapers or anywhere else that other people saw this strange craft and this on the same date and time that you did?
But I looked for other people to see it because there was a lot of activity going on that night. It went on for a solid hour. And like I said, this craft came back, and then it approached me, and it came right over my head and scared me. And that's
Yeah.
when I went into hiding and got some more pictures of it.
Let me ask you at this time, did you call the police this time?
No.
Why not?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I don't know. It's just I was just so caught up trying to catch some footage of it because I'd been reporting this stuff to MUFON, and they were challenging me to catch some video, catch some pictures. So I was intrigued by it, and I was amazed by it, and I just wanted to get some photographic evidence of it. So I had I had a flip phone at the time, but you have to
Right.
realize this is a Motorola Tundra in 2011. This was just about the best flip phone you could have, and at that time, not many phones had video capability. This one did.
Right.
So I'd spent some money to get a good phone to get some good pictures of what I got. And at that time, they're not a great camera, but it was as good as it got back in 2011.
Did you call any members of the media to report the story?
I think that night, I filed a MUFON report, and then I'd filed so many MUFON reports. I just quit, man. I was like that. But I got some pictures. I got some pictures of this thing. Anyway, and it came up right over the top of the battery. I could see the edge of the disc. The disc started blocking out the stars over my head, and it scared me so bad my knees started shaking, and I couldn't hardly move around. And I was walking around there, and I stopped the loading process, and I went and hid under the battery. And then and I thought, man, the battery could blow up because I just sucked oxygen into it. It's flammable as all get out. So I moved away from it in case it exploded. I watched the disc move right over my head. A huge compartment with a light inside it came on up underneath it. And from my hiding spot, I leaned around. It took every bit of courage I had to lean around the side of this thing, and it took a picture of the light compartment, and that's the compartment that has the alien in it, and it looks like a horn on its head. And I found out later in 2017, this alien that I caught in that compartment is the same one that came and visited me in my house here in Ranger, Texas.
How did you find that out?
Because when I got up and close and personal and seen her, and then I went back and looked at the picture, I could see the similarity. I could see the similarity in the creature in the picture and her.
So in 2017, you had a face-to-face with this ET.
Yeah, with this same one. It looks exactly like the same female alien.
Tell us about the meeting. No, what we're going to do is we're just going to wait a couple of minutes here because we're coming up to a commercial break, and I really don't want to interrupt you as you start telling us this story. Let our listeners know where they can. What's your Facebook site again?
You can go to the Ronny Dawson Experience there on Facebook. I have a book on Barnes & Noble called The Ronny Dawson UFO Story. Yeah. I just wanted to get it on paper. And I have a YouTube channel called the Ronny Dawson YouTube channel. It has like 1,260,something thousand views. And my most popular video is Man Escapes Alien and Abduction. I think that one video has over 900,000 views.
Do you get paid for this on YouTube? Do you make money on it?
At one point, At one point, I made like $200 just selling advertising, just selling advertising to people who wanted to advertise on my YouTube channel, and I was shocked.
Really?
You know?
Well, I guess you've got to recoup some money for the expensive cell phone somehow, because you guys who do UFO investigating, you pay all the expenses out of your pockets.
Yeah, it's certainly not a money-making deal by no means. Right. I mean, I got $200 one time, and then it was like $50, $20 a month. I'm not getting anything now because you have to have, like 50,000 views a month before you start getting a check. All
right, Ronny, stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Next on Nation, Ronny Dawson is our guest, www.facebook.com/Ronny-Dawson-experience. And we'll be back on the other side of this break. And don't forget, you can always go to Amazon and Barnes & Noble online and get a copy of his book. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away. Ronny Dawson is my special guest of this hour. Exonation, www.facebook.com/Ronny-Dawson-experience. Ronny, before we went to the break, we just started talking about a face-to-face experience that you had with the ET that you had witnessed earlier on, and the date of the meet and greet between you two was sometime in 2017. Tell us what led up to that meeting, what happened at the meeting.
Yeah, it's okay. After this thing approached me and the lights came on up underneath it, this thing backed away. A military jet flew over the area, and then a mothership came in. I watched these lights circling above my head, getting lower, and this thing all of a sudden, I thought, here comes another UFO. I'm going to get a picture of it, and this thing started coming out of the clouds, and it almost got foggy, and this thing came in like a dart. It was like a big V shape started coming, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And this thing, it had to be a mile long V-shaped craft. And I mean, it was solid rock on the bottom. You could see burn marks. You could see meteor craters. You could see impact marks. And this thing looked like a meteor for all practical purposes. And it passed right over my head, fairly low to the ground for something this size. And I could just see that it was solid rock on the bottom. And then this thing started slowing down. I thought, okay, it's not a meteor because it's slowing down. Meteors don't slow down. This thing slowed down, and the first part that had passed over me started tilting up. Now it looked like a skyscraper rising up in the air. And then this thing shot off, and it shot off so quick that I couldn't even imagine something big that big could move that quick. I mean, you could see the air rushing to fill the vacuum that it created. You could see the steam and fog rolling off the surface of it as it took off.
So when you're saying the fog, I remember watching. I can't remember Independence Day when the UFOs would come out of the sky. They'd be surrounded by cloud or fog. Is that what it looked like?
That's exactly what it looked like. And I think it's because of the cold of space coming in and getting with the warm air of our atmosphere. Mm-hmm. It's the only thing I could think that would cause it.
So what happened? When did you meet the alien?
Okay, this thing, like I said, it passed on my head. It went away and it banked back towards me. And then I could see that there was a city on the surface of it. And this thing, I thought, man, it's coming back. It scared me again. And I thought about dropping everything and running and hiding. And then it stopped. Mm-hmm. And then it made a big half circle. And then it went from being something that huge to just a dot moving across the sky in about 2 seconds. Amazing. I mean, that's the most amazing sight anyone could ever see. And I actually got some video footage of that, and it's also on my YouTube channel. About 15 seconds, I caught the left at a mile distance. It was still wider than the camera's field of vision. That's how big it was. I got the left side of it.
How far were you away from it, Ronnie?
It was 1 mile. It was about a mile away from me, coming back at me when I got the video rolling.
All right, so let me just understand this. It was V-shaped. It had rocks on the bottom.
Right.
You could see meteor hits and other, I would imagine, scarring from its travels.
Yeah, and on the top of it, it looked like a weird-looking city with all sorts of lights, and you could see this blue neon power line-looking things roaming across the surface of it. Weird-looking buildings.
And you
a
said
tall tower with lights, and there was a row of burning flares, like it was some kind of refining process going on. There was a lot of mix of buildings and lights and stuff like that on the surface of it.
And how big would you say this craft was? It was a mile away from you. So how big would you say it was?
It looked like it was a tight V. Each leg of the V would be about a half mile long. Mm. So, I mean, this thing, you wouldn't have no problem seeing it if you had been there.
Okay,
this thing filled the sky. I had a UFO full of sky, and what scared me the worst was holding my phone up to get a picture of this thing and looking at the black screen on it, the black display screen, going, my God, this is an opportunity of a lifetime, and I'm going to miss it completely. And finally, I just give up on the display screen, and I pointed the eye of the camera at the thing, and I pushed record, and I prayed that I caught something.
Now,
and I did.
Now, what part of the state of Texas did this happen in?
This was just outside Coleman, Texas, right off Highway 206, near a little farming community of Echo. It's about a mile south of 206 is where this oil field battery was at, where all this took place.
Is it strange that no one else saw this but you?
And I was looking at some MUFON reports, and a lot of people had seen a similar looking craft in that area. So, I think other people have seen it, down there other than me, but they're just like me. They didn't have any pictures to prove it. It was just their word against, I'd like to, MUFON won't tell me who these people are. They'll share what they shared, but they won't share with me.
Tell me about the experience you had with the extraterrestrial themselves.
That happened in August 2017. I've been seeing some strange anomalies around my house, and I didn't really know what to think about it. And I was coming to bed one night. My wife was fixing to come to bed, and the bedroom light was on. I was laying in bed, closing my eyes.
Okay, hold on here. Because before I asked you if anybody lived with you, you said no. Now your wife is there. So was she there with you in the previous, when your house was ransacked?
No, she wasn't there then, but in 2017 she was.
Okay. Go ahead.
And my wife was fixing to come to bed, and the light was on. She was giving the kids their marching order. And anyway, so all of a sudden, I'm laying in bed, open my eyes, and there's this mist covering the whole bed. It's almost like, it's like a smoke. You can see through it. It's not so dense, but you can definitely see. And I'm thinking somebody burnt something in the kitchen, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get up and see where all this is coming from. And I had my eyes wide open, and all this smoke all of a sudden just shot through the wall. It just took off and went right through the wall. And I thought, okay, this I've been wondering for a while if ET was wandering around my house watching me, but I know now. There's no doubt that this is some paranormal stuff here, no doubt. And it was just a few months after that. It was about August 2017. I was working nights. I come home, and I was tired. I was asleep, and I remember I wasn't even dreaming. I was just completely out after working a long, hard night. And I was laying in bed, and I remember having also like a mini dream. It was like these two females had my arms, and they were pulling on me. And then I slipped out of their grasp, and automatically it's like I went back to sleep. And I remember kind of thinking to myself, man, that was a weird dream, And then all of a sudden, it happened again. I was dreaming, and there's these two women. They had a hold of my arms, and one of them said, "Help us!" And I thought they were like pulling me out of a manhole or something, and they were pulling on me, and I was helping, trying to fight to get loose, like I was stuck in a hole or something like that. And finally, they pulled me loose, and all of a sudden, I popped out what I thought was a hole, and I was standing there. And I was going, "Oh, thank you." And the first thing they do is start apologizing. "We're sorry for interrupting your rest. We're from another world, and we need to have a conversation with you." And I'm thinking, "Oh, thank you. And I'm like, "No need," And I looked around, and I realized I'm standing in my room. My body's still asleep. Somebody's sleeping in the bed. I'm not really sure it's me, but I'm thinking, okay, I'm standing beside my bed. Then I looked, and I'm standing in my bed. I don't have any. From the knees down, I don't have any legs. I'm actually standing in the bed. And then I look down, and I kind of freak out because my legs are in the bed, or I can't even see it. It looks like I'm standing on my knees with no legs on the bed. Mm-hmm. And I try to walk, and then I kind of fall forward, and my hand goes out, and I put it on everyone who's sleeping in the bed. I wasn't sure at that point, but it's actually me sleeping on the bed. I reached out, put my hand out because I was falling. The two aliens grabbed my shoulders to try to help hold me up. And I remember my hand goes into my leg, and I feel it rest on my bone in my leg for a second. And then all of a sudden, it goes right through my bone like I broke my own leg. And then I could feel the softness of the mattress underneath. Mm-hmm. And then I'm freaked out. So I pull my hand back. And these aliens are trying to help. They walk. I basically weighed out of my bed, and then all of a sudden there's my legs. It's like I had legs from the knee down, but I was submerged in this bed, and they walked me out of the bed. And then I realized that, okay, this is really weird. And I looked at the person sleeping in the bed and realized it's me. And I looked around, and it's my bedroom. And I'm thinking, it's some women and my wife had got to play a joke or something like that. And then I got to looking at these girls, and I could see that, like, one is very tall and athletic looking, has very short black hair. She has a big ruby thing stuck to her cheek. I first thought it was a birthmark, but after I got closer to her, I could see that it was like a really elite, really nice carved, like, ruby. Mm-hmm. It stuck to her cheek. She had like a diamond in the center of her forehead. She had like a tattoo on her cheek. And the other one was a little bit shorter, and she's a lot more muscular, and she had big hair. And then when I looked at her face, she was a very attractive woman, and then all of a sudden, right down at the tip of her nose and her chin turned into like a cat's mouth. Oh. And I seen whiskers on her upper lip that were like that, like they had trimmed, and it kind of reminded me of porcupine quills. And I was like, oh my goodness, man. Okay, they're not kidding me. They're not from here. This is real. This is really going on. And so I'm sitting there, and she said, "Look, I said, this is a rift between your world and ours, and this is where the people of your world are going to meet the people of our world, and this is where we are going to meet. And it's safe for biological harm here. We're safe for physical violence here." And she said, "You could move through solid matter here." And she had me put my hand on the other female's face, and she said, "Okay, now just push." And I pushed, and my hands slowly started going into her head. And I could feel the skin, I could feel the flesh on her face, I could feel her hair, and as I pushed, I could feel what felt like her skull. And then I pushed a little harder, and then I could feel like the brain matter inside her brain.
Ronnie, we've got to take our break. Please stand by. We'll continue this and wrap up this hour here in the X Zone with Ronny Dawson on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Exonation Ronny Dawson is our guest this hour. On Facebook, he can be found facebook.com/Ronny-Dawson-experience. Ronny, before you left, you were telling us about the face-to-face contact that you had with two alien entities in your bedroom at your home. And they were giving you reasons, or they were telling you that contact was going to happen. And what else did they tell you, Ronny?
Well, they told me that we had probably a 45-minute conversation, and they said they had found our world because of nuclear testing had sent light and radiation into their parallel universe, and during investigating it, because they said they had been at war and they had been attacked, and one of their planets was badly damaged because of an interdimensional weapons, and when our nuclear explosion sent light and radiation into it, they investigated it, they came across us, and they said that they were not the first, they were not the only aliens, they're like a federation of many aliens,
right?
And they had been fired upon it, and they warned me. They said our nuclear testing could set off their defensive countermeasures, and it would be very bad for us.
Why did they tell you?
I have no idea why they told me, and actually I told them that I'm not the person that they should tell.
And what did they say?
And basically what they said was that they're going to have when they have open contact, and they're working on it. They said they're working out some bugs right now. They're working on it, and open contact's going to happen. And it's going to happen in this rift between the dimensions because, like they said, they had me put my hand on that just to show me that you can't cause physical harm here because you can move through solid matter. And the funny thing was, at that time I was talking to these guys, and my wife walked through the bedroom. Now this is about 9 o'clock in the morning, you realize. So she walked through the bedroom, and I'm sitting there with these two aliens, and I watched my wife walk right through the bedroom on her way to the bathroom, and I'm like, why didn't she stop? I was like, they said she can't hear or see us. They can't see it, or they said we watch you guys. We watch you from here, and you cannot hear or see us from here. And I seen her, she walked back out of the bedroom, she stopped, and she looked at us, and one of them kind of freaked out and said to the other one, and she said, can she see us? And she goes, no. And she said she's looking at him. And she pointed at my body sleeping in the bed. And then she continued on her way out. And I asked her later, why she did that. And she said, it's because I have sleep apnea, and she just stops sometimes to make sure that I'm breathing. She sees my chest rise and fall, and she just makes sure I'm breathing. And that was the reason she did it. I never knew she did that, but it kind of freaked the ET out because one of them thought for a second she could see us, but she walked out of the room.
All right, so let me just see if I understand this. Your wife walked into the room to go to the washroom. On the way back out of the washroom, she looks at you standing talking to the two aliens, and the next day or later on that day when you're awake, you asked her why she did that, and she said, well, she stops and looks at you while you're asleep because you've got sleep apnea, right?
That's right, yeah.
So why would she look at you standing up if you were laying in bed?
No, we were standing beside my body, sleeping there in bed, and she looked our direction. I mean, she did not look right at me. She was looking our general direction.
How do you know this just isn't a dream?
I asked myself because I didn't really want to say anything unless I investigated that myself. Because even with the UFO pictures and everything, I've catch a lot of flack from the skeptics and doubters and so-called armchair debunkers, and I was thinking myself, okay, I don't want to say anything unless I really know. How am I going to know this is real? My wife was wearing the same clothes.
Yeah.
That I seen her go through. She told me that she did go through there. She did stop. And then I was sitting there thinking to myself, just running it through my head, and I thought, you know what? I have two pictures on the wall, and in one part of this encounter, I asked them to show me where they came from, and they had me walk through the wall so I could see their world through this dimensional stargate or whatever, how they got here. They instructed me to walk through the wall, and I had to walk to this picture that's hanging on my wall, and I remember going really slow because I was afraid the glass. I wasn't comfortable with moving through solid matter yet, and I was afraid the glass would cut my face. But when I was working that day at work, I was thinking, you know what? I don't think that picture has a glass in it. I think it's just like the picture on the other side of it, which is solid wood. It's just like paper on wood. There's not a glass there. So I came home excited because I remember when I walked through that picture, I remember the glass. And then I remember inside the wall, there was a stud inside the wall that passed through my right shoulder. And I remember I had to struggle harder to get through the stud in the wall than I did the sheetrock.
Right.
It was harder to move through it when you're moving through solid matter. And then I came home and I was anxious to see if there's actually glass in this picture or not. And when I came and I looked at the picture, it did. The one on the side of it does not have the glass. This one has glass. I walked up to it. It hits my face, right in the middle of my face, right where I remember it hit me. I went and got a stud detector. I checked the wall. Right where my right shoulder would have went through the wall, there's a stud in the wall. So everything, there were several different things that helped confirm that this is a real deal. Plus the fact that I've seen them, plus the fact I've recorded them, plus the fact they've been in my house and I've seen them moving around and have photographic evidence of their being in my house watching me from there.
But once again, I have to ask you this as a former police officer myself. How come you didn't call the police to make a report that somebody had been in your house? How come you didn't call any authorities when you saw this 1.5 mile by 1.5 mile by 1.5 mile UFO? Something doesn't ring right here.
Well, to me, I don't know. It's just, that's the kind of stuff, when you're in my business, man. I mean, I would never hear the end of it.
Are you afraid of the police?
No, finally, I've came out and told everybody. At one point, I decided this is way too important to keep to myself, and I came out and I've told everybody. But no, I haven't went back and called the police, and I don't think the police would do any good. If I had one iota of a thought that would help, that would accomplish anything, I would have no problem with doing it. But I just, because I sit there and look at it, like try to look at it from a police officer. Well, I have no physical evidence. I don't have the alien to prove that the alien was in my house.
But still, somebody invaded your home. That's against the law. That is a police matter.
Yeah, I wish I would have called the police that night. But I was just like, okay, I really don't know what to do. I really didn't have anybody to talk to, didn't have anybody to believe me. And they're like, well, you could have just wrecked your own house and made up a story, It's just, and I'm like, do I really want to put myself through that? I was thinking, well, if I just keep going, I'm going to have some real solid proof at some point, and then I can come forth with it, So I've got some photographic evidence. That's about as best as I've got so far.
But even that photographic evidence isn't solid proof.
Right.
I've looked at what you sent us, and I can't make heads or tails out of it.
Yeah, the left half of the craft that's moving up there, and I've had it's a professor from the St. Petersburg University down in Florida. He said, I could believe you if you could look through the footage, you could find me a star field in the background of the UFO. And I actually took the time and did that, and I found the star field in the footage, and I showed it to him, and he goes, yeah. He goes, that thing was big, was it? I said, yeah. I said, well, it was big, So it's not that the proof isn't there. It's just a lot of people are just skeptical, and they want to debunk you, and they put a lot of effort into trying to debunk you, but they won't. Hardly anybody's put any effort into trying to help me prove it.
Has anybody from MUFON come down to do an investigation?
Yes, Teresa Turner is like the director of Texas MUFON. I think she went actually to the Coleman, Texas site, and I talked to her, and I showed her some of the pictures and stuff like that, and I told her the story, and we were at the sighting location. And but like I said, I don't know. They did some of the investigation. They didn't even see the creature standing in the. I mean, he looked at the same footage I did, but they didn't zoom in on it, and they didn't turn down the brightness like I did. And when I zoomed in on it, and I turned down the brightness, then I saw the creature standing in the portal window underneath the UFO. They never even found that part of it. So
why do you think it is that you saw it and the investigators didn't?
Well, one of the things you have to realize back at that time is on the MUFON website, you can upload a picture to it, but it had to be the resolution and requirements at that time were so bad that you had to you had to take a bad picture and make it even worse, lower resolution, so it would be fit their size format to upload to their reporting page.
Gotcha.
You know, that's where we were at back then.
All right, Ronny, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight at X Zone Nation. If you'd like to get some more information on Ronny and take a look at these pictures, Facebook.com/Ronny-Dawson-experience. I've got another explanation why the police weren't called, but that'll be for another show. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Crystal Beach, Ontario, Canada. And I'll be back on the other side of this news break at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology and trying to get to the truth. But it's the people who are claiming, the skeptics, the debunkers, what did he call them? Armchair skeptics, who are putting up a bigger smokescreen and making it hard for the truth to be found. And for goodness sake, if you're going to take pictures, make sure that people can see what you're saying is there, because leaving everything to their imagination is not going to do you a bit of good. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.